is Nate.
I'm Sharon.
We are the owners of Coffee Connections.
Our heartbeat is really, we just feel called to just love our neighbors, serve our city, to just be a place where everyone is welcome and we can just come together and share what we have, and a place where people feel safe and valued. So
Yeah.
we try to do that here in Hilliard. Honestly, for us, it's a faith-based journey. We really feel like it's something that Jesus called us to do. And oddly now, a decade later, our skills are uniquely suited for this endeavor.
And before COVID started, we had multiple locations. We had this one. We had our Gateway location down by South Campus. We were
We're in a shared space.
We were
in the
sharing
library.
space in the library, and then we were also doing like a shared space in Plain City as well. So we had all these different locations. The one in Plain City, we were literally pulling out all of the equipment, all the boxes, all the cups.
It was a
that
pop-up
day.
shop with an ice cream shop, so we were
Yeah.
only there for the winter months.
Yeah, and so we were done with that, and as we were doing that is when we got the...
Literally, we were driving with a truck
Yeah.
full of supplies to
Yeah.
drop them off here, and we get this notification that DeWine was like shutting it down for
Everything
3
down.
weeks, just 3 weeks, you know?
Yeah, shut everything down. I remember getting on Facebook Live and just kind of throwing out to customers about like, hey, we're gonna shut down, we're gonna take some time and figure this thing out.
So the world shut down for us on March 15th. On March 20th was our inspection for the market to open, which we passed. We did not open because why would you? We opened like Memorial Day weekend, like a few months later, but that is just like an ironic timing.
It was. As that went and as the realities of thinking through, a lot of the questions we kept asking is like, well, are we done? Is this it? Like watching some people really struggle, trying to figure it out. We had all of our employees we had at the time, we had to be like, hey, you're not working, you don't have a job right now. We had to pause that.
It was better for our full-time employees to get the options that the state was giving, right, with the pandemic funding. And so we kept on 1 or 2 maybe part-time employees to work on Sundays so that we would have a day of reprieve.
Our space is small enough where it'd be hard to be 6 feet away from each other. And so we decided to make the call just to shut it down and have nobody inside for safety reasons and for our staff, and then also for the people. And then we decided to just do a porch pickup, which came out of us ordering pizza from a restaurant. And that's what they did. They had a table out there, and you ordered your pizza, you came up, and then you text the number, and they opened the door, threw the pizza on the table, and then closed the door, and you grabbed the pizza and went out. I'm like, I can do this.
We can do this.
But that was a hard time because we really thought we were done. Just the finances and all the stuff, watching because the connecting part, you lost that. We asked a lot of people in the city, some different people that kind of knew a lot of things about like, should we just continue? Should we stop? And everyone was like, no, you guys are the light in the community. You need to stay open. You are the only ones that are giving us hope right now. And hearing that is a very humbling,
You're like,
I'm sorry,
okay.
what? No,
Yeah.
back up. Like, I've got those emails saved on reason. And so we continued to do that. And we just kept figuring out ways how we can just do the best we can connecting, even though we had to be distant from people.
Hindsight is so powerful. So you think back, but you didn't know what you didn't know. So when the pandemic started, you didn't know how long it was going to last. You didn't know how dangerous it was. And transparently, the first in April there, within those first few months, Nate's younger cousin, passed away from COVID. He was one of the first deaths. And so when it hits close to home like that, we wanted to love people and love people well. And it wasn't from like fear that we weren't being open, but we wanted people to feel like they could come and get coffee and be safe. Yeah. And so finding ways to serve them and honoring that safety. There's a few things that like in the pivot that we just joked about pivoting because the constant
Lots
new
of
things,
pivoting.
new rules, new constant, all the time. But 2 things that sort of like they existed in our company, but I think sort of took center stage in that was our social media side. We've always had a good social media presence, but I think just it's a way that we can just be authentically who we are and just share our story. That's what we just want to live life together, and it was a way to connect even though we weren't in person. We started writing notes of encouragement on sticky paper.
That's right.
And so every drink that left the shop for 2 years had a note on it. And one of my favorite pictures I have saved is from a new regular we met during the pandemic, Vanessa, who she would save them in her car. And one morning she put all of them on her window and texted a picture with our coffee shop in the background. And I think it's one of my all-time favorite photos because it's a tangible way for us to love somebody, even though because you didn't, you'd set it out there and you might not see them, but again, distance. And so you're like, it's hard to talk through a mask.
Found a lot of creative ways just to give people hope the best we possibly could give, because everyone had different views and different viewpoints on it, and some people were And we were like, we didn't want to be that, and we wanted to be the hope people that just like encourage, like, hey, you can get through this, we can get through this, we can do that. Our mobile app launched at that time. That was probably a very huge pivotal point in our business at that point, because we didn't have anything like that. Everything, you came in and you interacted at the counter, and that's how you did the coffee. The app gave that distance, gave that
a layer of safety.
A layer of safety that people can order, and we had a time to do that. And you'll hear about Ashley, who's our #1 app person, coming up in one of these videos, like, and that's how they came because of it. So COVID taught us a lot of how to be flexible, how to pivot a lot, we want things the way they are. I love like consistency and rigidity. I love expecting certain things. She's like, let's change it every day, right? So COVID kind of we had to use our skills and our trust in each other and what God was telling us to do to kind of help the business continue to do what needed to be done.
As the pandemic raged on, and specifically on the other side of 2021, especially January always, like your first quarter of the year is bad, people. In the holidays, it's bustling. You know, you got to make enough in December to cover the next quarter, but that did not happen in January. Like, we made enough in December to survive, but as the pandemic raged on, and that's when it got really heavy. That's when it got hard, because you're like, will it ever go back? I mean, we know it will at some point, but when? And there were real issues and real waves of things, and like the patio became super powerful, and being able to have people on the patio again and start doing those things. But there came a point when we had made the decision to close Gateway, like not renew our lease, which thankfully we were able to be debt free, and that's, there's a season for things. But if things didn't turn, we weren't going to be able to stay open here. The layer of that next level of authenticity and transparency was really hard, because it's easy to be like, oh yeah, come support us, or it's easy to ask for low levels of help, but to feel like at some level of failure, like hey friends, we just want to be transparent, like if things don't turn, we will close, not because we want to, but because we don't have any other choice. And
that wasn't because of like lack of customer flow.
It's because reality of the pandemic and cost.
Supply and demand issues that we had. Like,
couldn't get cups
to save our life. Everything was expensive. Everything was extra precaution. And then you're looking at the job markets, who had job, who didn't have jobs. Like, we're all tapping the same people that all have money, and those who didn't have money, like, what do we do, right? And so there was a lot of layers, and then you had mental issues that were going on. You had different perspectives on what they believe and that sort of thing. There was a lot of weight going like, oh yeah, just stay open. It's like, you can just stay open. It's like, I've got rent to pay. I've got utility. None of I'm thankful for our landlord. He allowed us just to pay whatever we could pay. Where a lot of places that they didn't get that. They were like, no, you still owe your $5,000 in rent. Our landlord was like, whatever you can pay. And we were like, thank you so much for that blessing. If we just had the expectations, oh no, you still owe me money and you still have to do this, there's no way we would have survived. So we just look at that as like kind of the blessing of the Lord, to be like, no, I've got you, I'm taking care of you, everything is okay, continue to love the people, continue to serve them, I've got your back, I'll take care of it. But it was really stressful, like created a lot of trauma for us mentally of like, what is happening, how is things gonna happen? And it took a while for us to kind of, I think we're finally on the other end of that trauma. I'm just maybe, I don't know, there's probably still slight problems there. But a lot of that came out of that pandemic, because you're making decisions not just for your family, but you're also all these people and like I said, we just got done doing our first round of telling our story videos, and you have all these people telling our story of how important this place is, and all of a sudden you have this weight of like, how do I keep that going? And I'm not allowed to.
I remember, I don't remember the exact day. I feel like it was a February 21, 22, I don't know, in there. And maybe this was 22, maybe it raged even longer. I can't really remember. He kind of pulled that part of it. But we put a post out there of authentic transparency, and we happened to have small Coffee Connection stickers, and I was like, I'll just sell these support stickers. If you want to donate to us, like, because all the time people say, oh man, I wish I would have known that business was doing bad. We would have gone, like it is, and it's true. I think sometimes you get in a rut and you get in a life and you just forget. You just go about your, normal day. And we were shell shocked, not just in like the outpouring of like, I put it out there and then like the online sales, but the next day, I mean, we had to call anybody and everybody that knew how to do anything. And I think it was Megan's like third day, and she's like, I don't even know what's happening. And I was like, we were just blown away. We sold out of everything we had, because we weren't prepared for that overwhelming show of support from the community. And I don't know that there is ways to adequately put into words what that meant. And it's probably not even one of our largest sales days, truthfully now, but at that point in the pandemic, the turning point that it was for us, and that the community was like, no, don't go anywhere. And so I think that is a unique challenge of the pandemic, was like just that, the raw side of just being able to be transparent and to share your burden, not necessarily knowing how it's going to be received. Because of course, there were the people mocking you on those posts, the naysayers or the keyboard warriors being like, well, if you had better hours, well, I still have 4 children at home. I still have, like, we're still trying, you know?
Yeah.
There's only so much you can do.
People you're going to hear from coming up, you'll hear about Mr. Jim and a lot of things. There's hopefully a picture that we're going to be able to find on Facebook. We're all standing 6 feet apart. There's me, there's our co-owner Jeff, and there's Jim, and he's down below the patio, and he has his mask below his face. He's got his hat on, and he's got his tea and his scone. We would all be out there, and we would just talk. And people would drive by with their cars, and we would wave, and they would walk by. We keep distance. We're like, hey, how are you? How is things going? The feeling of I'm gonna be nice to you even if you're not gonna receive it or not was very strong in those moments. Normally now it's not like, well, I don't know if I wanna talk to you right now. Well, you talk to everybody. Me, I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna do that, right? Different personalities. But in that moment, you kind of felt this joy that was like, I know you're struggling and I'm struggling too, but we're not alone in this. And I think our faith really helped us push past that a little bit and kind of see more on a spiritual level of things. And so when we started showing that, we got a ton of kindness back. We got a ton of support back. And for us, it wasn't like, oh yeah, give us your money so we can continue to thrive. It was more like, no, the relationships are still developing, the connections are still developing, the things that are still happening. We would bring meals to people. We'd have donations. People would need stuff, jackets or food or whatever, and we would have people drop things off, and we would kind of distribute it from there. So it was clean it, sanitize, all that stuff that needed to be done. So it was that extra layer of like, we care about you, came back to us pretty hardcore in ways that a lot of the people that you'll see in these upcoming videos are because of that. And it's just, to me, their stories are amazing because these are people we just didn't know until then, and they saw that kindness and responded.
Another way that the kindness sort of showed up in the pandemic, it's always been there. We've always donated our tips to different nonprofits. It's just a tangible way that we can give back, right? Because I'm a firm believer that we all can't do everything, but we can all do something, and a little can go a long way when we partner together. What was intriguing is typically it just happens to be that our tips generally are about 10 to 12% of our overall sales. That's just what they live at. It's just been that way from day one. I don't know if that's true for other companies, but for us. But during the pandemic, it was like 25%. You would imagine in a time when people are trying to pull back and trying to cut back, but they knew that we were donating to places like the food pantry and other places that just as much needed help as we did. And so I think that was just really cool to see.
It was neat because instead of just donating money for one group of people, you could split it up to a bunch of other people that needed it. And to see the community being willing to do that and see that and say, oh yeah, I want to help you out with that. It took the guesswork out of it because they already trusted us. They already trusted that where the money was going. They already trusted where it was happening. So there was no like, oh, I don't know. Like, oh yeah, they're going to do good stuff. Here's the money. Go do the job that you're supposed to do. That trust, watching that tip number our sales didn't go up. The tip number went up, and I was like, okay, cool. I'm so happy for this, but I gotta pay my bills. but we made sure that went there. And then especially like closing down Gateway, and then the library closing down, and then the Plain City location closing down. And as we were trying to figure out the whole market opening, that brought on a lot more complexity to this. And this is where we anchored ourselves in Hilliard. Because those other communities, though they were good and helpful, they didn't receive it as well as our community did here in Hilliard.
Well, especially like the one on campus, which makes sense, it's college students, but our heartbeat is just connecting with people in the community, and it was just different. It was different how it happened.
Different kindness perspective. You'll hear about a couple other people that I was interim pastor at a church in Plain City. And what that did for us as a family was this became our world, but it was nice to be able to, as we were understanding the pandemic and masks and social, all the stuff that went onto it, that extra we thought was a burden actually became a blessing because some of our closest friends came out of that experience. Yeah. And that kindness came back to us, even though we were going to Plain City every single Sunday and I was preaching and you had to work here sometimes and we weren't together and whatever. We got some really you're gonna hear about Peter and Amy Hansen, like one of our closest friends came out of that scenario. So it's just, to me, it was a hard time, but I can see God's work and blessing in it because we were just trying to be generous with what we had.
Everyone is welcome here, and if you don't share our opinions on things or our faith background, that's cool. We still love you. We want you here because I truly believe in the depths of my soul that Jesus wants me to love people, and you do that well by just, you're welcome, you know? But I do think that there is an element where I specifically, and even on our socials, have been substantially more direct because of the pandemic. Not in a in your face kind of way, but just in a, this is how we're functioning kind of way. Like Nate referenced earlier, like we were able to pivot because our hope isn't in us. And I mean, I can't control the future, and I can trust Jesus who does. And so for us, I think.
Yeah, it was a huge, because before the pandemic, we were figuring out like, how do we communicate our faith, and how do we make sure that people know we love Jesus, we believe in him, and this thing is because we felt like he told us to do it, and he provided for us to do it. And so it's like, how do you communicate that without feeling weird, or that sort of thing? When the pandemic happened, everything was weird, and everyone had their opinions, and they didn't care if you knew it or not. And so we're like, okay, cool, our turn. And we decided to do it not in an arrogant and prideful way. We did it from a very compassionate and gracious way. At least I felt like we did that, and that gave us more of an authentic. I felt like the doors of our business and what we were trying to communicate were fully wide open. Part of our story, and it's part of what makes it special.
We also have a backbone.
Yeah.
We've lived a lot.
Pandemic gave us a lot of understanding. Because you're talking to landlords, you're talking to suppliers, you're talking to customers, you're talking to all these people that have these different things, and you want to be respectful, but you also have to be like, yo, you're not running this, I am. So back off. Like, there are just certain things you have to learn to communicate, and that's a hard thing to do, because, you know, she's her husband, I'm her husband. Sorry. Her father. Her father's a pastor, my dad's a pastor, so I have a ministry background, she has an elementary background, so our entire world is kind of, we would be functioning within a people-pleasing mentality. And so having a business kind of had to shift that a little bit to be like, no, we can stand up for what we believe and what we want to do, but we don't have to be jerks about it. And the pandemic helped us figure that out. I mean, as the pandemic was coming out and we were able to open, a lot of things in the shop changed, because we learned a lot through that time. Like, we moved the counter, we added some different things. There was different people that we partnered with. Our relationship with Laura took off, and the Bakes by Lo, who you'll hear from her. Years later, Karis with Bear's Bagels came into the picture.
You say years, but it really wasn't that long.
I felt like it though. It felt like so much. For her, the story of like, the customers buying the stickers and coming and supporting. We had to call everyone. That was a big one for her. For me, it was the roaster. I was roasting at the Center Street Market, and the roaster I was using, absolutely love it, and it was great, but it kept on having problems, and the customer, that you guys all know, that I'd catch on fire sometimes, or I would have chaff that would catch on fire, and there's smoke everywhere, and the coffee would be turning out terrible, and we'd roast all the time, every day, with so much.
You literally set the dumpster at the market on fire.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Like, that's not a euphemism.
Not lying. So I've been researching this specific roaster that I wanted to get, but it was going to be about $10,000, $13,000 probably with shipping and all this stuff, and we didn't have that money. We don't have that. We're a small coffee shop.
Your resources were depleted.
And my resources, everything was depleted. Everything was struggling. Again, all the prices were going up. I mean, they're high now, and they're continually going high, but they were high then, and that's kind of where the spike happened, was during COVID. That caused a lot of tightness, so I was just like, how are we going to afford this? Or maybe we're done. Maybe we just can't roast coffee anymore. I'm like, I want to be able to do that. I can buy it from other people. There's something special about having it myself and having my customers experience that, and all the smell, all that stuff. We want that sensory experience. And we prayed about it. We talked about it. We're like, well, we can do a campaign, and we can be like, hey, we need to raise X amount of money to make this happen. We were like, you know what? We need to pray about this, because we already tried this during COVID, and people responded. And there's a limit where you can't keep asking for large sums of money from people. Sharon came up with this whole tier system that they can.
Well, it's kind of like pre-buy your coffee, buy a year's worth of like coffee beans from us now. Help us get, and then you just collect it throughout the year.
And then we launched it. I think it was an accident. We weren't ready to send it. I think we sent it.
No, I was ready.
Yeah, you were ready. I was not ready.
I was
like
talking about it, and I was like, let's just put it out there.
The first day it went out, we had like $3,000 or $5,000 come in just within the first day of posting it, and that to me was the shocker, because I was like, that's a lot of money. Where is this coming from? And I was like, because I thought, I was like, you know what, we're gonna put this out there, we might get $100-$200, because we've done trips to El Salvador's, we throw this out there and we barely make that.
I feel like,
and so I thought for sure, this will never, we might get maybe a couple people, whatever, but then having a large sum like that on the first day.
We'd secured funding for half of it, so we're like, well, if we could fundraise the other half, we can move forward with this plan. And so I think we got to like almost half of it in day one, and that was what was shocking. And within 72 hours, it was fully funded. And I was like, oh, I did not see that coming.
Yeah, so we bought the roaster. It came in, and I was reading the manual, and I'm like, I hope I'm doing this right. And you'll meet Tim and Kara Smith, and Tim literally was instrumental to help me set up that roaster. What he didn't tell you is that he literally helped me set up the program for the roaster.
He speaks code.
So like he just took time out of his day. He read the manual inside and out. He said, this is what you need to buy. This is how we're gonna do it. We're gonna make this happen within probably an hour or so. The roaster was ready to go, and I was roasting in the annex. That was just a blessing, but we knew we couldn't keep it back there. We knew we needed to move it somewhere else. And through different relationships and connections, we met John at the Hilliard United Methodist Church, who you'll see in the video, and they had a space for us, and we were able to set up the roaster in there, and now the food pantry's in there, and so we're all sharing life together. And it's just, to me, it's neat to see these things that happened in the pandemic as they kind of came out, started refining our business a little bit more, bringing these connections. We're able to be like, yeah, we care about you, but it's really the community we care about. And you're seeing all these people rally behind to make it happen. And selfishly, it's like, oh, this feels really good about me, right? It's like, oh, it's all about Nate and Sharon. Like,
toot our own horn.
Yeah, that's not the goal. The goal is to basically say, it's amazing what happens when you think about other people. And if everyone did this, whatever it is, we could really change the world. Things could be so drastically different. And we're thankful for all the people that we know and people that call this place like peace when they walk in here, or home when they call in here, have them over our house for dinner and lunches and hang out, and our phone numbers and all that stuff is because we really do care about people. We want the connections to be there.
When we opened, it was like a big push to be open for Old Hilliard Fest, which hindsight is a terrible day to open, and like your city's biggest festival day.
Yeah, that was not.
We were thinking. We didn't know anything.
We did it, but
not great with an 11-week-old baby either. But,
no.
You know, we survived. We both had a similar experience that day, and like you close up shop and you're like, oh man, we did it, and then you're like, crap, we have to do it again tomorrow. You know, like, you know, when you're opening your business, the whole goal, you're like, you work tirelessly to get open, and then it's like you've pushed this ball down a hill and you're just chasing it. And the pandemic let it splat. And you could just strategically sort of pick up the pieces that made sense and pivot incessantly and figure out what works now. But yeah. I think through that, it was, for us, we were able to like really like hone in on the things that mattered to us, amongst which is this connection piece of community and generosity. We don't always make decisions based on the bottom line. Of course, you have to pay your bills and that kind of thing. But I think we want to give freely, because to whom much is given, much is required. And like, if you just, it's like a sieve, you just keep giving and more can come back. And it's amazing what you can do. It's not like we really have a whole lot, it feels like, in a lot of ways, but you just, if you have your hands open generously, it's amazing what will happen.
And that was fun because it was a challenge, because having 4 daughters, like
that is a challenge. That can be the
not
end of your
just the
sentence.
drama of 4 daughters.
Doesn't have to be like anymore.
But during the pandemic with our daughters, because not only do we have to navigate our business and have like, okay, we need our business to provide money so we can pay bills. We also have 4 daughters that are now at online school, and we need to figure that out now too.
Which I used to teach kindergarten and online school, and not the same.
So
let me be very clear.
We had to do a lot of like, our girls would hang out here, or they were at home or whatever, and it's just teach them, as well as the chaos that was happening during COVID and things were coming out, being generous, thinking differently, thinking whatever. So, I mean, they're sick and tired of this place sometimes, but other times I know it is shit. And we've told them we're gonna pay for counseling. We know we've jacked them up. We know what's happened.
It's just included.
We can't buy them a wedding. We can't buy them a dress. That's not happening. But we will pay for counseling. Well, maybe. Yeah. But depending on how cheap the dress is.
We have 4 kids. Okay, 4.
It's like you will all get counseling at some point, but they were great. They were great through COVID. They were encouraging. We had a couple little things and things like that always happen, just like what every normal kid would go through. But I feel like the Lord gave us a very special blessing as a family to get through that together. And they understood that, hey, we're here to connect with other people, because as we were connecting here, they were doing it with their friends. And Roadblocks became a huge community center for them. They were on Roadblocks every day, all the time, when they were off their iPads. And they were just connecting. Our neighborhood, we basically just said, you know what, we're gonna be around each other, we can't be alone.
Quarantine together.
So our whole neighborhood, our whole cul-de-sac decided to quarantine together. And so we were just outside playing. So we were outside. That became the new normal for our neighborhood, where now everyone just goes out in the street and play. And that came out of COVID. Yeah, so the fact that we as a family realized we couldn't be alone, and my girls recognized that, and them able to foster that around their friends, was a neat blessing to watch our girls kind of grow into that, and to where they still foster that today, which is like, that's important to them.